system network in the northern African countries, let's say the Asian countries back in the day. In the last 100 years, we've been speaking about other schools also. So I thought I'd concentrate a bit on the Otzar HaTorah school network over here, which is also known as the Treasure of Torah in English. It's an organization, I believe, that was created in the year 1945. This was, let's say, to provide Orthodox Jewish education for schools. It began setting up schools at the time in Mandate Palestine. And then after, let's just say, the formation of Medinat Israel, the modern Israeli state, it went on to, let's say, develop religious Jewish education in various Muslim countries in the Middle East and in North Africa, respectively. What's noticeable about over here is, I think, come the year 1961, it expanded further by opening a school in France where Sephardi communities were growing very rapidly, let's just say, because there was immigration of Jewish communities from North Africa that followed up several former French colonies achieving independence. I'd say its French network in current, I think recent times, serves communities in Paris, Toulouse, Marseille and other places. Its schools, let's just say itself, teach secular subjects alongside a strong religious curriculum. It is, let's say, extending, especially in modern day, to even more cultural sphere, evolving its schools into multi-purposes Jewish communities. This is, let's see, I think it was financed by the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, and local communities and let's say private individuals over here would help. Now, just looking at the history of it, I think in 1945 there was a Syrian-born man with the name Isaac Shalom of New York City actually, together with Joseph Sharma of Jerusalem and Ezra Tubal of Buenos Aires in Argentina, worked together, let's say, to develop a way, let's say, to offset what they saw as, at that point in time, there was a spiritual decline in the Jewish sphere, and at that point in time there was more intellectual impoverishment in Mandate Palestine and the Middle East. So they founded the Otzar HaTorah, which was a non-profit organization in Jerusalem under the chairmanship of Joseph Sharma. The organization, let's just say, started with an investigation of Jewish communities in Palestine and several neighboring Arab countries. It wanted to provide good teaching, food and medical care to students also, let's say, who immigrated at that point in time, who immigrated, let's say, families may have been often poor or struggling at that point in time. Now, what's interesting is Otzar HaTorah first opened in what was then Mandate Palestine with 29 schools. After the establishment of the State of Israel, I think around 1948, Otzar HaTorah ceased its operations in Israel. It began developing schools in Jewish communities, nations throughout the Middle East and North Africa. It's reported over 40 schools were established in Iran, in which 8,600 students were enrolled. It would provide education also in primary schools of the Alliance Israelite Universal Schools also, so it would provide the religious education over there. Now, I believe in Syria, Otzar HaTorah was active in Aleppo and Damascus. I think it originally had 350 students. The schools funded by American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee. I think come 1971, the Damascus school was recognized even by the Syrian government education department as a school with the highest grades in the country. So, and we see from the secular sphere, the achievement it had. Now, Otzar HaTorah would establish schools in Tripoli, in Libya, before the Jewish population largely immigrated to the land of Israel in 1950. I think it's even operates in Morocco, I think in recent times, with reported over 500 students. They say at its peak, the organization was operating an educational network serving 17,000 students, from the first grade children to learner students preparing even to enter the rabbinate. That's how encompassing it was. I think come 1970, the organization was running 23 schools and a summer camp in Morocco, 41 schools and a summer camp in Iran, and 2 elementary schools in Syria. There were students in elementary schools in France, in Lyon. They had a total enrollment of 13,610 students. Now, interesting, let's explore France. There was massive immigration of Jews from North Africa countries to France in the late 20th century. And the former colonies gained independence. Otzar HaTorah would extend, say, its network to France. Opened its first school, I think, in the year 1961 in Lyon. At that point in time, many Sephardi Jews would actually settle there. Now, come 1971, Otzar HaTorah would open 2 schools in Créteil and Sarcelles. I think these are suburbs of Paris. And by 2012, let's see, there was 1,000 students at that point in time. It would set up schools in Antony, in Toulouse, in Marseille and Strasbourg, and other cities around there. And I think there were 20 schools in France in total. I think even in the 21st century, especially in Marseille, it had the second largest Jewish population of 70,000 people at that point in time. Now what's interesting actually is, just give me a minute. Just a short break. No, I didn't get it. It's not mine. Okay. Now, I think at that stage in time, come what 2012, Otzar HaTorah planned to develop the schools, let's say further centres in Jewish community life. They built mikvaot, ritual baths, they call it, synagogues, and provided adult classes at that point in time, day camps, and other community activities. I think in 2012, there's 20 schools in France were headed by Rabbi Jean-Paul Amoyel. And he worked with the organisation, I think, since the year 1967. And according to CRIF, more than 30,000 students enrolled in the Otzar HaTorah schools in France. There was unfortunately a rise in anti-Semitic incidents in France, especially in the 21st century, as we know recently. And the schools assigned guards even to, let's say, improve security in the schools. Interesting enough, there was, as we stated before, there was as many as 40 schools operating in Iran, 8,000 students. Obviously, 2 schools in Syria, just to recap. And I think the network educated about 10% of all Jewish children of school age between 1947 to 1962 in some of these countries. Now, I think there was encouragement of Rabbi Abraham Kalaminovitz, who was the president of the Mir Yeshiva. They collaborated with a great Rabbi Raphael Abbo, who we've mentioned about before. I think he had an integral part in the Otzar HaTorah networks in Morocco, and they would transfer many of the students from the school to various different Lithuanian yeshivot, I think in Europe and in the United States of America. At that point in time, they were trying to rebuild the yeshiva world at that point in time. And many of these Moroccan Otzar HaTorah students would become very, very integral at various later times. So this is a special edition. We're exploring the history of Otzar HaTorah network schools. They were seen as a more religious school, obviously, than Alliance network schools, which was also very, very popular in those days. But I think it would be an interesting tidbit to look about, which we mentioned about many rabbis that in yesteryear did actually enroll inside that school system network. Now friends, we're exploring the history of the great rabbis of yesteryear, in the last few hundred years. Please subscribe to the channel. We're nearly on 7,000 subscribers, which is absolutely phenomenal. If you descend from any of the rabbonim we are speaking about here, please let me know. I'd love to hear more. If you feel anyone's interested in watching these videos, share the videos to other people also. So I'm recording this at a time of Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Wish you all well and take care.